It's everywhere, it's viral, and it's sparking debate. Today, you're going to see it up close and personal. Now, of course, I'm talking about the Buga sphere. That's right.
Something crashed quietly in a Colombian town, but what landed wasn't a meteor or a satellite. It was a perfect metallic sphere. At first, it baffled everyone,
raising a single question at the heart of it all. What is the Buga sphere, and who or what sent it?
No seams, no sound, and inside, 16 smaller spheres arranged like a cosmic puzzle. Then came the glyphs, symbols no one could read, until AI cracked the code. What it revealed wasn't a greeting, but a chilling warning. Suddenly, this mysterious object wasn't just a curiosity, it was a message with terrifying implications, and it's just the beginning. The Fall, a sphere out of nowhere. It was just another warm, blue-skied afternoon in the small Colombian city of Buga when something streaked across the sky and changed everything. At first, it was easy to mistake it for a drone or maybe a meteorite, a glinting metal object cutting erratically through the air, but without the speed or sound you'd expect from either. Witnesses describe it as flying too smoothly, too deliberately, as though guided by some intelligence. Then, without a crash or explosion, the object descended gently into a cluster of trees on the edge of a residential area, brushing leaves aside as if it had landed by choice. When locals rushed to the site, what they found wasn't wreckage, it was a sphere, perfectly round, metallic, cold to the touch, unnaturally cold, even under the tropical sun. It measured about 20 centimeters in diameter and weighed just under 5 pounds, but the truly eerie part was its silence. No humming, no ticking, no movement, just stillness. Some said it was smooth as glass, but gave off the feeling of something ancient, like it had a story to tell, if only it could speak. And then things got weirder. Someone poured water on it. Whether to clean it or test it, nobody really knows, and the surface emitted a faint vapor, almost like dry ice reacting. One man who touched it said he felt dizzy within minutes and had to sit down. Another reported a slight, high-pitched ringing in his ears after standing near it for too long. The sphere wasn't hot, it wasn't sparking, but somehow it felt alive. It didn't just land, it arrived. Local authorities cordoned off the area quickly, but not before cell phone videos spread like wildfire on social media. Within hours, #BugaSphere was trending. Some thought it was a satellite fragment, maybe a piece of space junk that re-entered Earth's atmosphere. But others weren't buying that. Satellites burn up. This didn't even have a scratch. Within days, scientists, engineers, and the UFO curious all descended on Buga. News vans lined the roads, speculations ran rampant. Was it alien? Was it military? Was it some rogue billionaire's new tech? Nobody had answers. But everyone agreed on one thing. The object wasn't ordinary, and its arrival, if that's the right word, was intentional. The local museum offered to store the object, but security concerns quickly moved it to a military research facility nearby. There, under tight observation and ever-increasing curiosity, the investigation began, not just to identify what the sphere was, but why it was here. Was it lost? Was it left behind? Or, more unsettlingly, was it just the first? A perfect sphere with no seams. The first thing scientists noticed when they got the sphere under a microscope and a high-powered industrial X-ray scanner was that it was completely seamless. No rivets, no panels, no screws, no weld marks. Nothing to suggest it had ever been assembled in parts. It was as if the entire thing had been cast in one impossible pour, molded from a single piece of material so perfectly that it defied conventional manufacturing methods. Not even the most advanced 3D printers could replicate such structural perfection, at least not with the materials and technology currently known to the public. But the real bombshell came during the internal scan. Beneath its flawless metallic shell were 16 smaller spheres arranged in a symmetrical pattern, orbiting around a dense central core like planets around a sun. The inner spheres weren't loose or floating, They were suspended in a matrix, perfectly positioned with mathematical precision. No obvious mechanisms held them in place. No wires, no supports, just geometry. Stunning, elegant geometry. "It looks like a miniaturized solar system," one researcher said during a press briefing, his voice cracking with excitement. Or a machine built to resemble one. Either way, it's deliberate. And it's advanced. The composition of the materials was equally puzzling. The outer shell appeared to be made primarily of a high-grade aluminum alloy, but with trace elements of something not quite identifiable. Spectroscopy showed properties associated with ultra-pure bismuth and some crystalline structures that hinted at fiber optic properties. Not only was the design beyond current aerospace engineering, it was the kind of design that hinted at an entirely different way of thinking about machines. More than one physicist joked nervously that if it was a probe, it wasn't built by humans. "We think in terms of bolts and batteries," said Dr. Lina Cortez, a Colombian materials expert brought in by the military. "This thing feels like it was grown. But grown by what? And why?" Other scientists speculated that the internal spheres might be data storage units, energy chambers, or even quantum processors. The possibilities were limitless, and almost all of them unsettling. Was this thing listening, watching, communicating? No one had yet dared to cut it open, not without understanding what kind of reactions might follow. For now, it was scanned, studied, and speculated over, its mysterious core left untouched like a bomb that might go off, or a gift that might change everything. In the end, what they had was an enigma, a perfectly smooth metallic sphere, embedded with 16 inner spheres, built with unknown methods and radiating an eerie sense of purpose. Its form was deceptively simple, but its function was still a terrifying question mark. Whatever this object was, it wasn't a toy, and it definitely wasn't junk. It was a message, they just didn't know what it said yet. Ancient scripts or secret tech. As researchers analyzed the sphere under stronger light and magnification, more secrets came to light, literally. Under UV exposure, a faint band of symbols appeared etched along the equator of the sphere, previously invisible to the naked eye, not deeply engraved, but laser-fine markings that shimmered under certain angles, like the kind of etching you'd find on microchips or quantum circuits. But these weren't serial numbers or barcodes, they were symbols, glyphs, and they didn't match anything in the known database of human languages. The glyphs were arranged with precise spacing, wrapping around the entire circumference in a single continuous line. Some resembled ancient runes or proto-writing, triangles, crescents, dots in concentric patterns. Others looked like moons, eyes, waves, or stars. Linguists were brought in, along with code breakers and AI specialists, and still the verdict was the same. Nothing on Earth used this system. At least, nothing documented. One historian noted that a few glyphs bore a passing resemblance to ancient Mesopotamian scripts, perhaps even some Linear A or Mayan symbols. But the layout didn't follow the grammar or pattern of any ancient language. There were no obvious repetitions, no structure that resembled letters, verbs, or punctuation. In short, it wasn't readable, at least not with the tools people had been using for the last 5,000 years. This triggered two competing schools of thought. The first believed the glyphs were decorative, cultural markers, the way ancient potters signed their work or tribal societies carved totems. Maybe this was just an alien emblem, a cosmic logo burned into the shell like a signature or badge of pride. The second school thought something far more serious, that this was code. Not a language for speaking, but a kind of symbolic programming, maybe a data map, a key to the sphere's purpose, or even a trigger mechanism. If so, that meant the markings weren't for show. They were part of the machine. By this point, the public was fully hooked. Leaked images of the glyphs went viral. Reddit threads exploded. TikTok creators posted minute-by-minute breakdowns of each symbol. Amateur sleuths started matching them with everything from crop circles to Egyptian tomb carvings to alleged UFO debris from Roswell. Everyone wanted to crack the code. Everyone wanted to be the first to say, "I figured it out." And then, amid all the chaos, a new player entered the game. Artificial intelligence. Researchers decided to feed the glyphs, now digitally scanned at ultra-high resolution, into some of the most advanced AI models available. The goal was simple. Could a machine find a pattern in what humans couldn't? Could it detect logic where human eyes saw only mystery? The AI worked fast, running through terabytes of linguistic, mathematical, and symbolic data. And what it spit out next would send a chill through the lab, and later, the internet. Because the machine didn't just identify a pattern, it translated it. Enter artificial intelligence. The digital scan of the glyph band was fed into multiple machine learning systems, each trained on different disciplines: linguistics, ancient scripts, symbolic logic, cryptography, and even art history. But one experimental model, built to recognize visual-to-text pattern overlaps, gave the team their first real shock. It didn't treat the glyphs as static icons, but as elements meant to move, to rotate, to interact. The model tried something no human had considered. It duplicated the glyph sequence, rotated one copy by just over 7 degrees, and overlaid it onto the original. And just like that, something clicked. Lines lined up, circles became letters, triangles locked into new shapes. What had once seemed like chaos rearranged into something eerily familiar. From that fusion, the eye pulled out a string of Roman characters, spaced perfectly across the full length of the glyph band. The result was a phrase, simple, chilling, and impossible to ignore. Artificing Earth, Ship 12. The lab fell into silence. Then questions erupted all at once. "Is that even a real word?" someone asked. Artificing wasn't common English, but it was technically real, an archaic term meaning to craft, to reshape, or to build with skill and intention. Paired with Earth, it painted a haunting picture. Earth wasn't being watched, it was being worked on. As for Ship 12, raised the hair on everyone's necks. The implication was huge. This was no one-off probe, no alien message in a bottle. It might not even be a message at all. It could be an instrument, a tool, part of a series. And this was just number 12. But of what? Theories exploded. Was this part of a fleet? A batch of terraforming devices? A rogue AI swarm sent from somewhere light years away? The phrasing didn't sound like a greeting. It didn't say peace, or contact, or observe. It sounded like an engineer's notebook, a maintenance log, something clinical and detached. Other AI models tried to replicate the result, and did. In fact, no matter how the data was sliced, artificing Earth kept appearing, almost like the phrase was coded into the glyphs through geometry, not syntax. Some researchers argued the translation could be pareidolia, a kind of data hallucination where patterns emerge from randomness, but the consistency was undeniable. Critics rushed to dismiss it. "It's like reading tea leaves with machine vision," one skeptic wrote. "You can make an AI say anything if you tweak it enough." But even they had to admit, if this was a hoax, it was a brilliant one. And if it wasn't, well, then something out there had just told us it was building or modifying Earth. And it was on ship number 12. What the ship implies. Let's say just for a moment that the AI's translation is accurate, that the phrase carved subtly into the side of this perfect metallic orb truly reads, "Artificing Earth, Ship 12." What does that mean? What are we supposed to do with that? Start with the first word, artificing. It's not a word we hear often in modern English. Sounds like something pulled from the notebooks of Da Vinci or a fantasy novel, but it has a very specific historical meaning. To artifice is to alter or manufacture through skill and precision. This isn't basic assembly or construction. It's creation with intent. To artifice is to design. Not randomly, not accidentally, but surgically, strategically. Now pair that with Earth. Not a planet being watched, not a habitat being preserved, but a thing, an object, being artificed. The phrase doesn't say contacting Earth or visiting Earth. It says Earth is being modified. That hits different. It shifts the tone from curiosity to control. And then comes the dagger. Ship 12. The phrase implies there are others. Not one sphere, but a dozen, or maybe more. 12 ships, 12 spheres, 12 devices. If this is Ship 12, then where are the other 11? Still in space? Already here? Scattered across continents? Buried deep in oceans? Orbiting in silence? Are they all identical? Or does each serve a different function? It raises deeply unsettling possibilities. What if these spheres are part of a broader planetary engineering effort? Not a visit, not surveillance, but a full-scale planetary project, Earth as the blueprint and these devices as the tools. Imagine a future where we're not alone, but not because someone wants to talk to us, because someone wants to tune us. And not everyone interprets ship the same way. One camp argues it's a designation, a name, like Apollo 11 or Voyager 2. Another theory suggests ship refers to a being's form. Perhaps this isn't a vessel, but a living unit, some kind of synthetic life form sent to a planet not to explore it, but to rewrite it. Slowly, subtly. There's also the possibility that the phrase wasn't intended for humans at all. Maybe it's an internal marker, a catalog label, meant to identify the device in case it malfunctions or needs retrieval. The way we tag satellites or probes. If that's true, then the message isn't a greeting, it's a service log. And let's not forget the most terrifying idea of all, that the message isn't meant to be read yet. That the eye's decoding, intentional or accidental, was never supposed to happen this soon. That the glyphs were designed to be deciphered by a more advanced intelligence. And somehow, by sheer luck or design, we're catching a glimpse behind the curtain of something vast and alien and utterly beyond us. It forces us to ask questions that scrape the edge of paranoia. Are we being studied, adjusted, reformatted? Is the Earth a sandbox for someone else's experiment? Are these spheres probes, scouts, or tools for transformation? Because if something is artificing Earth, it's not waiting for permission. It's already begun. Other decoding, skeptics, and the big what if. As word of the AI's translation spread, artificing Earth, Ship 12, the internet predictably lit up. News outlets ran the story with headlines somewhere between science and science fiction. Forums erupted. Debates spun into wild orbits. And then, right on cue, came the counterpoints. Not everyone was buying it. Cryptographers and linguists quickly pointed out that machine learning is only as good as its prompts. Feed it biased inputs or tweak its interpretation parameters, and AI can deliver patterns where none exist. It's like showing a Rorschach test to a computer and asking, "Do you see a spaceship?" If you prompt hard enough, the answer will be yes. Skeptics suggested the AI didn't translate the glyphs at all. It invented a plausible-sounding message based on shape correlations and human-readable layouts. In other words, the phrase might not be decoded, but hallucinated, a poetic fluke generated by a very confident algorithm. The AI saw the word ship because we wanted it to, one researcher wrote. That doesn't mean it's really there. Another popular theory was that the sphere is an elaborate art piece or viral marketing stunt. Some pointed to the smooth construction and ancient-style markings as hallmarks of alien core sculpture, an emerging genre of art that blends mystery and technology. If it's a hoax, one art critic tweeted, "It's a damn beautiful one." A few even speculated it could be a test balloon for a secret tech firm or part of a global alternate reality game, ARG, that hasn't fully launched yet. And yet, the questions remain. Even if the AI-generated phrase is off, if it's coincidence, misfire, or matrix glitch, there's still something about the sphere no one can explain away. The seamless design, the internal orbs, the unknown alloys, the faint reaction to water. The glyphs, however decorative or real, aren't random scribbles. They're consistent, structured, intentional. Another AI, run on the same glyph band, with a different prompt chain, produced an entirely different interpretation. This one wasn't technical, it was philosophical. Origin of unity, energy meets birth and form, it read. Poetic, yes, but terrifying in its own way. If even part of this message is true, then the sphere may not be a probe. It may be a story, a tale told in code, or a warning, or an invitation. There's also the eerie possibility that we're misinterpreting it all by assuming we're the audience. What if the glyphs were meant for something, or someone else entirely? Another machine? A collector? A rival species? A kind of cosmic graffiti tagged to say, "We were here, and we're not done." One fringe theory even proposes that the sphere didn't arrive recently at all, that it was always here, underground, dormant, only now rising or revealing itself due to environmental changes, human activity, or cosmic timing. In that light, it's not a visitor, it's a sleeper agent, a buried node in a planetary network we never knew existed. In the end, whether the message is real, fabricated, misread, or half correct, doesn't change the outcome. Humanity found something it wasn't expecting, something it didn't build, something that might not even care that we found it. And that might be the most terrifying part of all. Because if we're not the authors of this story, then we're just characters in it, watching, decoding, guessing, while something else turns the page. What do you think of this mystery? Drop your comments below and subscribe for equally interesting contents.